All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm super excited that y'all decided to join us for our very last Saturday portion or session for the Silent No More podcast. That was the crowd. Thank you for tuning in every single Saturday as we develop, learn, grow, and heal together because you owe it to yourself to speak up. So, like I said, this is our very last Saturday for our August series. In September, we'll have one Saturday session, and that will be Saturday, September 10th. We're going to do part two of the spiritual abuse session that we had a couple of weeks ago. Okay. So, we're going to focus primarily on healing after you've experienced spiritual abuse and continuing to build your relationship with God, even after his people, quote unquote, have abused their authority while you were under their care. So we want to focus more on healing, not what happened per se, but how you can move forward with your relationship with God. And that will be September 10th. We'll also have our Thursday series session. So we'll meet twice in September, once on September 10th, and then we'll give you the other date next week or in a couple weeks. That'll be another date in September, but it'll be on a Thursday. We'll have 2 Thursdays in October, and then in November, we'll go down to one podcast per month. All right. So a lot of you have been asking me about our former videos, our former podcasts, even when I did Overcoming Battles with That War. You all were like, well, how do I get that information? So I'm trying to get us, because before we were on Spotify, on iTunes, on all that kind of stuff, I didn't do that legwork. My partner at the time did. And so my goal is to reach out to the powers that be and figure out how we can actually put these podcasts on Spotify, on the different outlets for podcasts to be, platformed, mainstreamed across the nation and internationally. So thank you all for that feedback. Hopefully one day, Oprah or Tyler Perry or someone will see the podcast, see the value of the podcast, and want us to be something with them one day. Okay. Whatever you speak, the Bible says, ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be open unto you. So I'm doing that, putting that out into the universe. Okay. I don't want this just to be a regional thing or even a multi-state thing, but I want it to be a national thing so we can syndicate healing across the nation and across the world. I believe we are world changers through the purpose that God has blessed each and every one of us with. All right. I want y'all to save the date. Save the date. I already told you about the October 22nd event for the book signing and the mini mental health retreat, but April 15th, 2023. Say it with me. April 15th, 2023. It's a Saturday, pre-derby. We are going to have a healing and empowerment conference, okay? It's going to be a one-day conference from 10 to 2. And we're going to have a national renowned guest speaker who's also my mentor. She's amazing. And then we'll have 2 panel discussions, one on accepting what has happened, healing, and moving forward in your greatness. And then the other one is once you've healed and you're ready to build your empire, what do you need to do? So we'll have life coaches, we'll have therapists, we'll have business coaches, we'll have book coaches, and we'll have millionaire panelists. They'll be females, but women of influence that are millionaires that look like us. Okay. They're going to be there and talk about their blueprint, how they built their brand, how they marketed their service, how they marketed their product. And now they are a millionaire. So you have to heal and then build an empire for you, your family, and generations to come. That's April 15th, 2023. Also, I want to shout out the WEB Du Bois Middle School football team. They're playing today at 10:30 at Westport Middle School. And as soon as my podcast finalizes, I'm going to dart out of here. So I'm already fully dressed. I've already treated myself with off because we'll be out in the elements, and sunblock. I have my sports hat thing on to keep my dome protected from the sun and the elements. and I'll be darting out of here as soon as we're done. Okay, so blessings and good luck to WB Du Bois and Westport. Whenever we beat you, don't feel too bad. If you need healing, check out a couple of my other podcasts, and it'll help you to get yourself together because this is about to go down. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists. We have Dr. LaShonda Fletcher and Jeremi Taylor. Thank y'all for being here today. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right. And so if you could introduce yourself, we'll start with Dr. Fletcher, and let me know if you prefer to be Dr. LaShonda, Dr. Fletcher, however you prefer for me to refer to you.
It doesn't matter. Dr. Shonda's fine.
Okay. And then we'll go with Jeremi. So go ahead.
So I am the CEO of Revelation Counseling Center. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am also a co-pastor of New Revelation Church. And we will also be having the grand opening of Carla's Wellness House, which will be an intensive outpatient facility located here in the Wilderport community, which will be servicing women who have severe depression, anxiety, or alcohol addiction. And so I'm also the author of 2 books, You Can't Give Up Now, and also The Black Church in Mental Health.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Shonda. And I would love to, if you ever have any events where women can talk about their experience with depression and how they dealt with it through therapy, I'm more than happy to come and volunteer my time. If you ever do like small groups or something.
Yes.
All right. And Jeremi, you were on my show a few weeks ago. He's my brother, y'all. Go ahead and tell the people about yourself.
My name is Jeremi Taylor. I am a pastor in Evansville, Indiana. Do a lot of community work in the city. I'm actually getting my MDiv from IWU, Indiana Wesleyan University. So I'll be completing that in 2024, and then I'm looking to go to Morehouse to achieve my doctorate at that location. Right now, I'm just doing a lot of work in the community. Our church actually has where they feed the homeless on Tuesdays and Saturdays. From like 9 to 11, and then 11 to 2. And then we have a Bible study that we host for those homeless individuals. We have programs that we run for single mothers with children struggling with their finances. People can come there and pay for their bills. They get connected with Work One. So we have a lot that we're doing in the inner city. So, yeah.
I love it. And of course, the invitation is always open, although I have to travel. Now, I was talking to one of our cousins, Carla.
Okay.
And Catrice's birthday was the other day. They're having a party. And I was like, I had all intent on being there just to get Una pizza and to celebrate Catrice. But I wanted to chew a little bit. But I love Catrice. Catrice is amazing. So
yes, she is.
Happy birthday, Catrice. Shout out to Catrice. I think she's 17.
I'm not sure if it's 16 or 17. It might be 17 because I think she's driving now.
Okay. So happy birthday, Catrice. I hope somebody was able to. Well, hopefully you can see this later on. So I'm sure you're not on here now. But anywho, Jeremi, if you ever need me to, or Zoom, come down. You have to give me some Una pizza. But if it's a Zoom, then you don't have to worry about it. I'll just log in and pour into the people. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. So today we're going to talk about life after divorce. Life after the divorce. Now, when I was contemplating on the topics of the podcast for August, I was thinking about my book and the different themes in the book. And one reason why I wanted to focus on life after divorce is because when I was going through my divorce, I thought I was the only person dealing with those emotions. And I didn't want it because I was so strong. And I was like Superwoman. People could count on me to do anything. And so I thought that, okay, we're getting a divorce. All right, what's next? Check that off. And now move on to something else. And that's not what happened emotionally. And so I decided to go into therapy. It was my first time going into therapy from after I was, I think, 14 years old, because I had a horrible experience with my therapist when I was 14 years old. And I was still fearful, but I said, I need to make sure that I'm not losing my mind. Like I need to make sure. And so in my session, she asked me, like my therapist when I was 14, what's your first memory? Is that something that everyone does, Dr. Fletcher? Dr. Shonda?
No.
Okay. Okay. So they were two there. Both of them asked me my first memory. Both of them did. And so, anywho, when we got into the divorce, I was telling her about it was like I was going through the stages of grief. I was severely depressed and I cried constantly. And that was at home. I put on the facade outside of the home. Nobody knew I was experiencing because I wanted to be strong for my boys. I wanted to be strong for the church members that were still looking at me for support. I wanted to be strong for my students, strong for my colleagues, but I was broken. So,
Mm-hmm.
Jeremi, what are some things that you dealt with emotionally as a man when you were going through your divorce?
Let me preface it by saying I was never big on watching certain TV shows like Oprah or anything like that. But Dr. Phil, I will say, became someone I was watching almost daily. And mine was the same ordeal. But I was in the house by myself because my family actually relocated to Atlanta. So my grief, I believe, and depression got a little bit more deeper because it was like mourning because I could go to my daughter's room and see it empty.
Mm.
So seeing that when you're a present father and you do everything with your children, now they're gone. Because for me, it became a thing of I didn't want to be a stepfather. I didn't want to be a baby daddy. So I would do anything for my family to remain the same, even putting up with stuff in the marriage that I just should not have. And so then I began to almost beat myself up and begin to question myself, what could I have done to salvage this relationship? And then I began to think that my daughters would resent me and be angry at me, ask questions of why I'm not there anymore. Why won't I relocate with them to the city that they're now in? And so you have a lot of fear. And then you, as a man, you begin to question, what will people think about me? Am I a failure as a man? Because oftentimes when the family unit or any relationship breaks up, the first thing they do is look at the man and say, what did you do?
Mm.
It's never, it doesn't hardly ever rest on the female's shoulders. And so, and then you take,
Because we're perfect. I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
well,
Woo!
in most instances, women act a little bit more. I always say women are catty. They're cats. They're very independent. They do whatever they're gonna do
Clean
around the
it
house.
up,
You
brother.
won't even know somebody has a cat, but a dog. We all know you got a dog because he's gonna be in everybody's face. Like, so women have a way of keeping the secret society movement alive to where you don't really know what they're doing because they know how to move, so it's not so public with what they're actually doing.
Okay,
That's
so we're
just
smarter. We're smarter.
you're gonna make it sound good either way you can. So there's no way around
Okay.
that.
Let me put that on my list of things to remember for later.
But oftentimes the men are often viewed as dropping the ball and mishandling the family. So those were some of the emotions that I went through. And yes, the tears were there. The prayers were there asking God, why did I have to go through this? Why did this happen? I don't want to be like those in my family that have gone through this. And so as men, I believe we spend a lot more time thinking than what women or anybody else may assume. And so that thought process can take you down a spiral, dark alley. And my outlet became going to the gym and playing basketball because that was therapeutic. So I
Mhm.
pretty much lived at the gym playing basketball just because of the outlet. Because when I went home, or if I just drove around the city, everything reminded me of my daughters. Going to Walmart, walking in the toy section because they would want toys, and you're looking at clothes, but you can't try those clothes on for them. You're like, well, I don't know if their shoe size changed. So it just always is a trigger that you go through. And so those were some of the things that I had to deal with emotionally.
So, Dr. Shonda, I know you are a family and marriage therapist,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
therapist.
Um, okay, and I hope those of you that are watching, before you even, I believe, and I had a show a while, and I think you're actually on that show, a couple, maybe a year and a half ago, and we talked about the divorce rates during the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the therapists talked about the importance of going to marriage therapy as a level of maintaining a healthy relationship, so this doesn't happen. So, either what has been your experience with pre well, not even pre-divorce, just marriage counseling, just to maintain a healthy marriage. And then when you have counseled those that have gone through divorce, are the stages of grief normal for people to um, go through?
Mm-hmm. So I'm probably the one who had made that, who had mentioned, going to see a therapist every 2 to 3 months if you're married. And one of the reasons why I tell people that maintenance sessions are so important is because some couples struggle with communication. And so if you're not happy about something and your partner has not created a safe space for you to be able to share, that then usually if you come into a therapy room and space, then those things can be discussed, they can be brought up, and they can be worked through in a very safe space. Like example, a lot of couples who come in, sex was not a topic in their household, right? I know in my household, sex was a conversation, it was a topic. I'm very comfortable having conversations with my parents about sex. So sex does not make me uncomfortable. I can have conversations with Carl about sex and be very comfortable with concerns, whatever it might be. But that's a big taboo subject for a lot of people. And so even though two people got together, got married, well, when it comes to sex, a lot of times there's no conversation around it. And
Mm.
believe it or not, if a person's unhappy in the bedroom, they need to have a conversation about it. And
Yeah.
so come into a couple session, if you're unhappy about something, then those things can be brought up, they can be dealt with. And then guess what? We might not need to come back for 2 or 3 months. And I had a couple who came to me, and that was what the husband wanted. He wanted them to come to see me every couple of months for maintenance sessions, and they have been thriving. And a lot of times when folks come, the other person might be caught off guard about some of the topics that are brought up, like, oh my gosh, I did not know that that was an issue. Why? Because they might not have felt safe enough to have that conversation at home without them breaking down, without them crying, or either without him getting angry. So then we can have that conversation here, and it creates a safe space. And I will say that the 5 stages of grieving, there's also a 7 stages of grieving. It is very appropriate to use those stages, because whether we realize it or not, we are grieving the death of a marriage. And so with that person, you had all of these hopes, you had all of these dreams. That was supposed to be your person. Y'all was supposed to do all of these different things together. And so now I have to begin the process of grieving the loss of this relationship and of this marriage that I had so many hopes and dreams, that I thought, we were going to be able to do all of these things together, and we were going to be together forever.
Yeah, yeah. I remember at times when I first filed, because I didn't want to divorce. I mean, I don't think anyone wants to divorce, but it was like a scare tactic. Maybe if I file, then there'll be remorse and he'll be afraid to lose me, and then things will come back together. And they didn't. And so it was like to the point where we're at our final divorce decree hearing. Maybe this is the day he's going to say, let's try to work on this, and nothing. So I was very disappointed, although I was not in a healthy marriage, and I'm thankful. And that may have been a normal thing too, I don't know. But I'm thankful for where I am now, because I don't believe I would be where I am now if I would have stayed, or if I would even be here now if I would have stayed. But there was just like a longing. Maybe we can get it, we can still get it together. Did you experience that, Jeremy?
No,
Okay.
and everybody's situation is different though.
Yeah.
Because for me, now we both were on the end of receiving some form of abuse, and that's, I believe that when most marriages fall apart, it's some type of abuse that you feel that you're experiencing, whether it's verbal, whether it's psychological,
Mhm.
emotional, sexual. It could be some type of withholding where it's like, I deserve more than this. And for me, for so long fighting for what I felt like I deserved more of, by the time I reached the point of divorce, which, keep in mind, I never allowed the topic to be discussed in my household. I made it a point to say, once we're together, my mind will never shift to divorce, because I will do everything to make this work. So by the time I actually said, you know what, I think it's time for divorce, she knew he's not he's not playing. Now there was a scare tactic that she tried, um, and mine was I had a counter tactic because
Hold on, I gotta get this tea. Hold on, I got some. Nothing's in it, but I gotta act. I gotta act like I. Okay, go ahead with the story.
so the scare tactic was, of course, my children, because again, she knew I loved them, which hence was why the relocation so far away. And the assumption was, well, he'll come to his senses once he actually sees the U-Haul being. Well, I helped load up the U-Haul and everything, and then I went and got a puppy because I knew you can't have a puppy at this house that you're moving to. So now you know this is the nail in the coffin because now I have a dog.
The games. Oh,
That's my rebuttal.
in his defense, he is a dog whisperer. And
Oh, yeah.
so he loves animals. So I thought you were going to say something on the lines of, so I got a puppy, so I wouldn't be lonely.
No.
That's not it.
That wasn't it. I knew I would be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, but when you know yourself as well, because I am a loner, and some of that goes back to the treatment that I had as a child in the household, which caused me to seclude myself just so I can maintain sanity and peace. So even as an adult, though I've always been in the spotlight because of basketball, whatever, I love being by myself. And I'm not going to argue with myself. I'm not going to talk bad about myself. None of those things that I experienced that were inflicted by other individuals happen when I'm alone. So that became a safe haven, a safe place. So I wasn't concerned about that. My biggest fear was, what are my daughters going to feel? But as far as my mind being made up at that point, now I will say it took a friend of mine coming to the reality that you talked about, Dr. Hunter. He said to me, you do realize you are not the only individual to get a divorce, and you won't be the only one. And so, like you said, I felt like I was the only one. And so that was a hurdle I had to get over. But once he said that, it was like a light bulb went off in my mind. I said, you know what? Yes, I'm leaving now.
Yeah. You brought up children and your kids going into your daughter's room. And I remember when we first moved out. It was January 3rd, 2015. And of course, my two youngest went with me. My oldest was in college at the time. And I did all I could for them to be comfortable. So I talked to my ex-husband, my now ex-husband, about getting them in therapy because they've only known us being together. Like they even, I mean, we weren't married when Jacob was born, but we were married 6 weeks after he was born. And so that's all that they knew. And I'm different than you, I guess, because of my childhood experience. I took care of you and our sister, so I was always nurturing and caring for. And although I had my two youngest with me, I didn't have them on the weekends. And that's when it really mattered to me. It really mattered. And because that's when you can go to the skating rink and you can go to the museums, you can go. So I was the get your homework done. Here's dinner. Let me take you to work, pick you up from work, take you to conditioning. I was the workhorse. And then the weekends I didn't get, and I did opt for that for during the our last divorce hearing, because my ex-husband is a pastor and I wanted them to still have the family support from the church and all that. And I didn't want to take that from them because I was not going there. So I wanted them to still have that opportunity. But it was like I lost a piece, although I had them, I lost a piece of me. And even now, it's like I'm searching for that. Like I want to come home, and I'm too old now to come home to children, but like now I long for grandchildren and a husband and their children and have a host of things. So I find myself now hosting cookouts and get-togethers because I'm so used to being that person that brings people together. And when I lost my family, it's like I lost all of that for a season. And so it is different for everyone. You were okay with being secluded. I had to wrap myself around friends. I didn't have friends during my marriage for other reasons that could have been discussed last week during the domestic violence session, but I wasn't allowed to have friends. So that was new for me. And so they became my family. And so I think I may have been a little clingy because they were all I had. Because I'm not from here. I lost the church family. I lost my family. And then they end up taking on that responsibility without even knowing that that's what I needed. So yeah, people do cope differently. Are there any strategies, Dr. Shonda, that people can adhere to when they're experiencing these different phases of divorce? And it's worse at the beginning. It's worse at the beginning.
Well, one of the things that I like that both of you guys shared, and that is coming to the realization that you're going to grieve differently when it comes to divorce. And so, of course, I will tell anybody just to go on Google, print out the 5 stages of grieving, realize that there's going to be points to where you're going to be in denial that this is really happening. There's going to be points to where you're going to be angry, and you're going to be angry at them. You're going to be angry at yourself, and that's okay. There's going to be points to where you're going to be depressed. There's going to be points to where it's like, then it's going to be a time to where you're going to come into acceptance that, what, this is my new existence. This is my life, but realize that those stages are not going to all. So when you print out the 5 stages of grieving, your order might look totally different than what you printed out, but be able to do a self-evaluation of yourself and say, hey, this is where I'm at right now. And I'm angry, but that's okay. You understand what I'm saying? But then the other piece is making sure that you are mindful of the way that you're feeling, but also making sure that you are taking care of yourself. And so if you get to a point to where, I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not doing the things that I used to do, then realize that you have to ask for help. Because I think a lot of times when the beauty is that you did go to therapy, right? Some people kick themselves because I could have felt better a lot sooner if I did go to therapy and allow myself to process these emotions in a more healthier way. Because some marriages end on a good note and some marriages can end very chaotic. Because if you was with a controlling person when you were married, kind of like how you was in the whole domestic violence situation, then it was good that you actually went and got help. Because sometimes when you go through that divorce process, those that controlling nature oftentimes show right up in the divorce process. They want everything still to go their way. And this is the reason why we are cutting ties, is because you were controlling throughout the process of the marriage,
Yeah.
So I would definitely say constantly doing self-checks, making checking on your feelings, how you're feeling, and then also printing out those 5 stages of grief will help a lot. And if you can afford help and to get therapy, then go to therapy.
Yeah, I remember when a part of our divorce decree, and I was offended by this, but because of what my children had witnessed, the judge mandated that we both go through parenting classes. And I was offended because I was like, I do everything I can for them. I make sure they have breakfast and dinner every single day. When they were home during the summer, I'd even have lunch and 2 snacks for them, like we were a daycare center. I went to all the parent meetings. I did all the things that I could go to, and I supported as much as I could as a human being. And I was offended, but as I was going through the parenting classes, there was some stuff that clicked that I was like, okay, so when they ask these questions, this is how I should respond. Or I remember my youngest, I would ask him every day, and this is before the divorce even, how was your day at school? It was good. What was good about it? Lunch. Every single day he would say that. Every day. So I'm like, Julie, why do you do this? Why do you always say, well, because lunch is the best part of the day? So when I went to the parenting classes, they said, when you're kids, I was about to say students, when your kids give you blanket statements, ask them, tell me more.
Mm-hmm.
Or what else? And so the first time I did that, he said, well, and I got a good grade on my math test. Oh, okay. So then I would everything. How was service today? Tell me more. How was basketball practice? Tell me more. And I found that when I just did that, he was open to talk to me about other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was one thing that I took away that it's been a game changer. I even do that with adults. Okay, well, tell me more. I'm like, oh, so now they know I'm interested, and it's not just I'm just taking the time to do this. The other thing was making sure I had individual time with each of my kids every week, and doing what they wanted to do. So it didn't matter if it was playing video games, going for a walk. I was broke at the time, working 3 jobs, but if they wanted to get ice cream, we would go get ice cream. It would be a dollar cone at McDonald's until I could afford graders. Thank God for deliverance. But whatever they wanted, I took that time. Now, before the divorce, I spent that time with my middle son because he had a little middle child syndrome anyway. And I wanted him to know that he was important, just as important as the other two. And they knew what I was doing. My oldest and my youngest knew what I was doing. But what I started to do when that came up in my parenting classes, I started to go to new places with Jacob. And then he would tell Javen and Julian, hey, me and mom went to this new brunch spot. Y'all should go when it's your turn. And so I had to save my duckies just in case they wanted to go someplace new because he's a foodie. Then he started wanting sushi and steak and all this stuff. But that was a game changer too, because then they saw themselves as my son, but also an individual in my space. So those are two things that I took away from the parenting classes that have literally changed my life. I mean, it changed. So I was offended at first. And in the beginning of the divorce, I was blamed because I protected them from a lot of things that happened in the household. But once we got through, months later, a couple years later, they were even thankful that they didn't have to continue to live the way they did. How did your kids respond, Jeremy?
Well, they were young, so it wasn't initially when we had the conversation because I grew up when I moved in with my father. I learned the importance of conversation,
Mm-hmm.
explaining and answering questions, and allowing them to express their feelings without jumping on them because of what they said, but literally saying, well, you have a point, you're right, and not even trying to shape what they're saying so it fits my thought process. So the oldest, she was really more hurt than what I would have thought. And she just said, no, I don't want this. I
Mm.
don't want you guys to break up. And I thought her response would have been, yay, because she was just, she required a little bit more discipline than the other one. So I thought being the disciplinarian, but she liked that order. She liked that peace, that knowing my father's going to hold me accountable. And so I believe for her, she wanted her father to be there, who was her stepdad, who wasn't really her biological blood father, because I picked up where he left off. So that's what she didn't want to have that loss there again. Malia, she's just a sweet little child. She just, well, as long as you're happy, she has moments where she's wise beyond her years and she doesn't really get it. And so I believe she might have been 5 or 6 maybe. And so she was kind of like, oh, okay. Jaleese took a blow because I found out later that she was beginning to suffer from abandonment issues from me as her father. And so she
Mm.
didn't get all the time in that the other two got. And so she was competing for space. And so it would come out in forms of um, Daddy calls me Lisi Boo, but he just calls you Malia. So
Uh-huh.
she's fighting for her. I got a nickname, so I mean something. And it was like, and you don't really
Mm.
know that at the time. And so Malia learned I got to take a back seat And Jaleese, you just go with dad today, because she wanted her to have that relationship. And Malia would come to me and talk to me about anything, whereas Jaleese, she was fearful. I don't know how he's going to respond, because she didn't get to see me as a father. However, when situations took place, I was the call to get her back in order. So all I was the disciplinarian. So I had to learn, you know what? I'm not going to discipline her at all. I'm going to allow. I have to date her. So then I began to date Jaleese and court her and just love on her, and then we reached a space to where it's a little bit more healthy, um, than what it was had I not known. And that came because she went to her older sister Malia and just began to ask questions about me. And she was like, "How come you and your dad have this great relationship, and you can tell him all the stuff you're doing, and I don't know why he's not going off on you?" And she had to learn, well, you can talk to your dad like this too. So it was a process of.
So how old was Jaleese?
Jaleese was like 3
Okay.
when the divorce took place, 3 or 4. So she was
Well,
very
she
young.
didn't, she knew you because you're her
Yes,
father, of course,
yes,
but the capacity, because she was
yes.
so young, she
Hmm.
had to vie for her place,
Yes,
space.
yeah. She didn't know what a divorce was. She didn't know what a breakup
Man,
was. All I've known is them being together. And
yeah.
so you can't sit down necessarily with a 3 or 4 year old and say, "Hey, daddy's going to be," and they really comprehend.
Because in her mind, you left her.
Yes, yeah. Hence abandonment. You abandoned me. You left
Oh
me.
man.
You weren't there for me. You didn't call me. Well, you were 4. You couldn't talk on the, But in her mind, you could at least call. You could have done
Yeah.
these things. And by the time I was doing them, I believe there was resentment. So I don't want to talk to him.
Mm.
And sometimes what happens, when there is a split, other voices are talking because of their hurt and pain and resentment. And so she's picking that up and she's choosing her team. Yeah, he did that to me too. I know he did it because if he abandoned, he abandoned me too, mommy or auntie or whoever was saying it. And so then there was this, I don't want to talk. I remember one time she left me one of the rudest voicemails
Not Lacey.
on her on her birthday, because I didn't call the time she wanted me to call.
Oh, she was
So
looking
she
for your call. She was
yes.
looking for it and waiting for my daddy's going to call me by this time. And you didn't know that.
No, she was in a party. She's in a party. And so I'm like, okay, I want to wait until this, that, and third. And I'm going to call you once you're free and we can talk and we can have you can tell me about your day. Well, she called me and she left a voicemail and she went in. I mean, yeah, she let me know she wasn't pleased with me. And that was one of those calls I had to call her back and say, you will never talk to me like that again. I understand now. I understand why, but now I need to put the pieces together as to why you feel so bad about it. And at that point, I didn't know it was the abandonment issue because she was still processing things.
Right.
So it's a learning curve the entire time.
Dr. Shonda, I've seen quite a few couples
Mm-hmm.
with toxic bonds or bands connected to their children. And they hate each other's not this happened with Jeremy, but they hate each other so much that they purposefully, intentionally inflict emotional anguish on their children because of the absence of their mother or father. Can you please speak to this and about the reason why parents shouldn't do that and how it impacts their children even into adulthood? I know that this wasn't on our scope of things to discuss, but I think this is
Great question.
important.
Well,
Yes.
because it's interesting because I just had a couple. So I do court ordered co-parenting classes.
Look at God.
No, I do. And so the reality is that, when couples come to see me, one of the conversations that I have with them is that this is not about you two anymore. If you have kids together, then this is about the children. And I get that you are hurt. I get that you are bitter, from the things that took place within the relationship and the marriage. But once you decide that you're going to divorce and you have kids together, then now we need to figure out a way to co-parent, because this is about the fact that this is what we have in common. What we have in common is we both love this child and we both want the best for this child. So the best for this child is not for me to talk bad about your dad. And it's not the best for this child is not for me to talk bad about your mom or cause division in your relationship. Because the other thing is that now that I found this new person, we can X daddy out of the picture. And now he can come in and he can play this role as your father. And the reality is that the blessing that could happen is that this kid could have two fathers, a bonus dad and a biological dad that can very much respect each other and can be friends if bitterness is taken out of the picture here, right? And it goes back to you getting therapy for whatever issues you had in this marriage and this relationship, and then this other person getting therapy for the issues that they had in this relationship, so they can come together and have a great co-parenting relationship. Is nothing better than a divorce and both people come in saying that, you know what, we were not good together as husband and wife, but we are amazing co-parents because we both love and care about this child. Because if this child feels abandoned, then guess what? When they go into a marriage, when they get older, there's going to be all of this childhood trauma and issues and daddy issues that's going to take place that's going to affect this marriage and this relationship. Or there's going to be some kind of dependence on this person to have to make me happy or make me whole. When we go into these marriage and these relationships, what people fail to realize is that we both should come in whole and become one. You understand?
Yes. Yes.
I think what TDJ said best was is you take two jacked up people and you bring them together, you get a jacked up child.
Yes.
Reality is I think a lot of times in our community, mental health is not discussed enough to where when we go into these relationships as women, a lot of times we are sold this whole fairy tale that he's going to make us whole and he's going to sweep us off our feet and everything's going to be so romantic. And then when we get in there, it's like, what is this? You know, it is nowhere near what it is that we thought that it was going to be. And so that whole reality set in that, guess what? He's not this knight in shining armor that I thought that he was going to be, but he is human and he is a male and he makes mistakes. And so that's why I'm like, yes, kids are resilient, but we should not put them in this tug of war of them having to pick between two people. But how can we get to this place to where, guess what, we can both let our kid know that your mother love you and your daddy love you, and we both want the best interest and want you to grow up to be this healthy adult. You know, and so if we can get our feelings out of the way as adults, then guess what, these kids can thrive and they can be healthy.
Yeah, one thing you said that resonated with me was they can grow up as, because it happens more with women keeping the father away than men keeping the mother away. But as a young lady grows up, one that is seeking the care of a man, because we have people that desire different things. When you look at that in particular, when they don't have a father in their space to teach them how to be dated. Jeremy said he had to date his daughter. He had to let her know how to be treated, let her know that she's cared for. Whatever they have is what they'll desire. So if they have an absent father, they're looking for whatever they conceptualize what a father is supposed to do and supposed to be. He's supposed to protect. He's supposed to, provide, but he's supposed to also keep safe. He's supposed to, and so what does that look like for me? Well, or protect, what does that look like for me? Well, maybe if he disciplines me, because I didn't have that, then that's what I need, because I'm formulating what a man or a father is supposed to do with a daughter. As opposed to dating, I'm supposed to be disciplined. And that goes into all the other ramifications of the trauma of having an absent father. So fathers are supposed to discipline, they're supposed to protect, provide, care for. But when you look at that, that's why some women, if their mother was not with someone that was abusive, they'll look for that because, well, I'm supposed to be disciplined. And it's a subconscious thing. So ladies, while you think you're keeping this ragamuffin or whatever away from your daughter because you loved him enough to have her, okay? You loved him enough at one time to have the child. So make sure they actually have that experience, because there aren't I believe there are more fathers that want to be fathers than deadbeats. I hated every Father's Day when I see I'm the mama. Well, if we take a peek into your window, what have you done to push him away? Because a man can only take so much abuse. I was talking to my friend who her son just had a child a few months ago, and they're fairly young, and because they broke up, she's keeping him from the daughter, and he's done all he can. Mom, do we need to take her to court? We need to do this. And it got to be so overwhelming and so stressful that he said, just forget it. This child is a few months old, just forget it. When she's old enough to reach out to me, then because I can't do this mental anguish anymore. I can't, I just want to be there for my child. And so we wonder why they're not there. So when you are married, not only did you love them enough to have these children, you loved them enough to be married for however long that you were married. And no matter how sour it was for you, that doesn't mean they're a poor parent. Now, if they are abusing, that's different. But maybe they can't take the kids on vacations, but they can go to the football game. They can go to the cheerleading camp and rah-rah with them. They can do those things. So ladies and gentlemen, just make sure that if you're in a predicament of divorce, that you put your children before your hurt feelings or before your purpose to ruin the other person's life. The children come first. So be flexible. It's be an adult. Make sure that your children are healthy. You can hate their guts, but y'all should have a mom shirt at the game, dad shirt, bonus mom, bonus dad, bonus siblings, whatever. We all in this thing together. Be mature so your kids can be healthy and they'll know what love is supposed to look, feel, and sound like.
Yeah.
The other thing too that I see a lot of times, and that is sometimes women hold on to relationships longer than what they probably should. And the reason why they hold on is because they did not have any relationship with their dads whatsoever. And so now I want to hold on to this relationship so my kid can have a relationship with their dad that I didn't have. And they find themselves sometimes in very abusive relationships trying to hold on because they want their kids to have an experience that they didn't have. Now, I'm not saying that just because a person is a bad boyfriend or a bad husband, that means that they're going to be a bad father, because a lot of times just because they wasn't good in the relationship, that does not equate to them being a bad father. Some of these guys are amazing dads and are not being allowed the opportunity to be a father just because they don't want the relationship anymore. And so again, like you said, we have to be able to separate the two and allow fathers the opportunity to be able to step up to the plate, and they can still be a really great dad but not have to be with you. Don't hold on to a relationship if it's not good for you, but still allow that person the opportunity to be a great dad.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think too many times when a divorce happens between the adults, one of the parents subconsciously divorces the father role or the mother role from the relationship. Then they don't look far enough to see what this is doing. And you're not talking to the children to find out how they're processing it. They have no voice in terms of saying, this is taking a toll on me and this is how I'm feeling. All because you're so emotionally hurt and damaged because of what took place, rightfully so. And maybe you're just fed up where you're saying, I don't want to deal with this individual. But I learned there's always a way to deal. If you don't want to see me coming, I have a wonderful grand or grandmother that loves them, that can pick them up, and now they can bring them to me. There's always a way. If you don't like my new girlfriend, then okay, she can sit at home while I meet you, because you don't want to see the one I'm treating good. Now that you're gone, you get treated however. And so it's a lot that you have to learn to navigate so that no one person is monopolizing this relationship because they have the upper advantage since they have the children more than the other one.
And something else that hit my mind real quick. When I was going through the process, the very, very beginning stages, my ex-husband at the time was in a relationship with a new woman. And I remember that my kids came to me and they were up in arms and I can't believe this. And we don't like her. And I said, listen, you don't have to like her, but what I want for your father is to have a healthy relationship, because that's not what we had. So if this is, and I'm not going to be with anybody, not for real, until after Julian graduated. And that is exactly what my plan was. That's what I've stuck to. Okay. But I said, I want you to see a healthy relationship because what we had was not healthy. And normally children mimic the relationship that they grew up in. We're products of our environment. Okay. So if that's who his forever person is, fabulous. I want you to see what you can learn out of a healthy relationship because they're like, well, he never did this for you. He never did this for you. And he's doing all this for her. Well, good. Now you know how a woman is supposed to be treated. So, and they were like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And eventually they started to accept her because I told them, just learn what you can learn from this and just leave it at that. Now, if she's mistreating you, now that's we can take off these earrings, honey, and we can do a little razzle dazzle. But if, but if you're not being mistreated, take it for what it's worth. He's treating her like a woman should be treated. Yes, they're going on weekend trips. Yes, they're getting manis and petties together. They're like the mini Fletchers. I love seeing y'all on Facebook and all the things y'all do to celebrate each other. I mean, Dr. Fletcher and her husband, they are relationship goals, okay? So, yes, you need to have that. You need to be able to see that because that is how a woman is supposed to be treated. The way I was treated was not, okay? What we have was not healthy. And so, parents, that's also important. Just because they have Sally over here or Johnny over there, that ain't none of your never mind. What y'all had is over. Just pray that it's a healthy situation. Don't say, well, my child ain't never going over his house. They ain't never doing, y'all can't go no holiday world. I don't know him. Well, she does, and hopefully she loves her children enough to not have anybody that would harm them in their space. So just relax because you got Susie Boozy over here too. Just everybody relax. And it's okay. Our kids need to see healthy relationships. And then once you get over yourself, then y'all can buy those t-shirts and co-parent like Dr. Shauna was talking about. Right?
Yes.
Are there any last thoughts?
I just, this was very healthy and therapeutic. I think that it's always good for these discussions to be had, and for the audience that's listening, don't think that you're just receiving by yourself, but this is also healthy for us on the other side of it, talking about it, because there's things that come up from your past that maybe you have overcome, but it helps you to still heal because you're always needing healing for certain things. In fact, the brain is so complex that the things that it's protected you from remembering so that you could just continue to navigate life. But then you have moments where you're talking where you're like, oh, this comes back to me and I never really dealt with that. But now in this setting, I'm able to heal and talk about it. So I think this is a great panel discussion. I loved everything that's taking place on Silent No More. So kudos,
Thank you.
doctors.
Thank you.
I do want to say this, and that's for the ones who are Christians, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that you are having these conversations because these are important conversations. And I think a lot of times as Christians, we don't hear a lot about divorce. And so one of the things that I have learned is there is a divorce care group. If you go on Google and type in divorce care, they're not offered at a lot of our African American churches, okay, which we need to have them more at African American churches because people experience divorce, and divorce is very hard, and for some people it can be embarrassing. For others, they don't want to tell anybody that they're going through this process because, like he said at the beginning of the podcast, is that it gives you these feelings of being a failure, and you are trying to, you're going over in your mind what mistakes you've made and what you could have done differently. Allow yourself the opportunity to process. If you can't go to a therapist, go online, Google divorce care groups, and join a divorce care group because it helps you to be able to see that you are not in this thing alone. And I do not want anyone who's watching this podcast, if you are going through a divorce, then know that there is help that's out there that is available for you. There's other people who are experiencing what you are going through. So if you can Google divorce care, then go to a divorce care group, or if you have access to a therapist, then go and talk to somebody about what you're experiencing.
All right. We have someone that wants to give you a shout out. Dr. Hunter, could you tell Dr. Fletcher, Nathan Witherspoon said he loves her. She's the greatest of all times.
Thank you.
So if you have experienced divorce, You could be 7 years out like me, 10 years out. It could be something that you're just now contemplating, you're thinking about, or you're just now experiencing. If you need help, reach out to Dr. Fletcher. What insurance do you accept?
I take just about everything: Passport, Anthem, Humana, Aetna, United, EAP. It don't matter. I take just
Okay.
about everything. The only thing I don't take is Cigna. That's it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So you're all covered, probably. I'm sure she named one of your insurance. Do you do virtual sessions?
I do virtual and in person.
Okay. So if you're out of town, I have some viewers that are they're faithful to the podcast from Atlanta, from Maryland. Then we have the tri-state area, Ohio, Illinois people. So if you are in that predicament, I'll tell you this: my therapist is in Evansville, Indiana, and we have virtual sessions because I know too many people in this area. I don't want nobody to know my business, although it's confidential.
Mhm.
So if you're out of the state and you want that anonymity, reach out to Dr. Fletcher. And how can they get in touch with you?
www.rcclouisville.com, or you can give me a call at 502-224-4478.
All right. So she's amazing. Reach out to her and get the help that you need. And if you have children, I regret the fact that I didn't put my children in therapy when we got our divorce. And the reason being was because the times that they could go to therapy was their dad's time, and he wasn't willing to take them. So I wish I would have figured it out. During the week, though, we were gone literally from 6 a.m. to like 9:30 p.m. So it was impossible. But if you need this support, if you're going through divorce and you have children, you will need this support. I'm sorry, you will definitely need this support. Reach out to Dr. Fletcher, and she'll be able to help your children as well to get through this because it is necessary. All right. So I thank you for being a part of the show. This is the last Silent No More for August. We're going to resume in September. Of course, we'll have September 10th, and then we'll have another date. And remember, I'm going to do drawings for the September and October shows for a free copy of my book, Daughter in the Shadows. All right. I want y'all to have a wonderful weekend and go be great.